Hi everyone, it's Jamie from IndependenceStNola and Seasons and I'm coming on today to talk a little bit about the planets that are retrograde and the Supreme Court decisions. So this came to me last night after the Supreme Court kind of gave us a few gut punches, depending on your philosophies, I guess. And so I wanted to Well, actually, let me just back up a little bit. So a couple of days ago, um, my friend sent me, this is how spirit works. It starts giving you breadcrumbs. Or I would say if you work with the high priestess, this is how the high priestess works. Um, and this is like the high priestess in the tarot. And so she doesn't give you the whole picture, but she keeps giving you one step at a time. And so this is kind of how it's come to me. So my friend sent me a list of all the planets that were retrograde, and then another friend and I were talking. Um, and I said, and then I was like, you know what? I need to go and I know I have this stuff written down. So let me pull up my notes, my research, if you will. And then it all started to come together. So because all these things happened, and then those Supreme Court rulings came through, I was like, let's get on here and talk a little bit about what's happening with the planets and how I see this working with the Supreme Court as well. So in the things that I'm going to be discussing basically is the end of affirmative action, the no payment for, or no forgiveness for student loans, and the what's turning out to be false narrative case of you can discriminate against people or people's sexual orientation because it goes against your religious beliefs or whatever. What's coming out with that is that whole scenario has been made up. So if you guys don't see the freaking tales of irony that the Christians, the evangelicals, I don't know, now I'm making up fake words, but if they lied and made up an entire false narrative to get this through to the Supreme Court, isn't that fucking tales of irony? Like, you're supposed to be a Christian and have all these Christian values, and then you lie. I mean, okay, so we'll see. So anyway, I'm coming in with those three narratives that just came down. First and foremost, let me just say, dealing with all these things, it's really important to remember that when these things first come out and it like kind of rocks us back on our heels, and we start to say, as a collective, we start to tell the same narrative, like, oh no, and it's not wrong, it's not wrong to talk about Jim Crow laws, and it is the same thing, and it is that white supremacy and trying to keep people down and oppression. It is. At the same time, it's really important to remember that we are in this new age of Aquarius. I find it very interesting that they keep trying to play these old scenarios because they really don't know what else to do. And they're forgetting that we as a society and we as a collective, our consciousness is changing, our consciousness is rising. And so when these things first come in, and it's like, oh no, like, they took all our own, I could say Roe versus Wade, they took they're oppressing women and women's rights, they're oppressing LGBTQ rights. They're saying other people get to choose who gets to go to colleges now, they don't, and it's really so antiquated. It's just so interesting to me that they think it's going to have the same effect that it did when all this shit first came to be many years ago. And that's not to say that we need to see it for what it is. We need to call it out for what it is. It is what it is. At the same time, it is really important, you guys, to know that we're not living in that same energy or those same eras. So I was telling my mom last night, these extreme I guess, Republicans in this extreme court, which is, it's going to be shown how things are bought and sold right now. It's going to be a little disheartening. But it's becoming so blatantly clear, right? And that is because that Scorpio is really finishing up its time in the lunar south node, right? So all these stuff that was kept secret is now all coming to light. And so we're going to see how these corporations have really bought and sold politicians, have bought and sold Supreme Court justices. And so it is important to remember, like, the majority of us as humans are normal, like we all agree on the same things, no matter, I mean, 99%, I'm gonna say 99%, like we want good health care, gun control, um, women's rights, no one, LGBTQ, like normal stuff, like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, correct? So it is going to be seen where these extremists are totally out of step with the rest of us. And they do want us to feel disempowered. And they do want that white supremacy narrative, or in that patriarchy narrative where there is keyword supremacy. At the same time, there is nothing there to keep supporting this except for fear. And so it is really important when these things come up. It's okay to feel scared. It's okay to feel a little defeated. It's okay to be like, this sucks. At the same time, it is important to realize, because Gemini was in the lunar south node before Scorpio, which ended duality. And because duality keeps ending, that means when they say this, this, and this, in our immediate reactions to go back to, oh no, it's going to be just like that. That's duality, right? Okay, they're saying we can't have this, so then it only can be that. Well, that's dissipating. So when you immediately recoil and go, oh no, it's going to be like that, it's important for you to, take the time you need, but then remember, wait, we've got other options. It's not going to be just like that. There's a million other things we can do. We can file other lawsuits. We can come together and give support in different ways. We can put things online. There's chat rooms. There's so many other ways. So it's important to remember that when this happens and we recoil and immediately go to that narrative, to remember, wait a minute, we're out of duality. What's all the other options that we have that we can explore that maybe we haven't even thought of yet, right? And so this talk that we're having via Zoom, I hope starts to make sense with the planets, because this, and I got my tiny card today. This is the Eight of Swords. And the Eight of Swords represents victim mentality. And as you can see, it is okay to feel like you're being victimized, right? It's okay to be like, why are they picking on me? Okay. But the idea is, it's just the mentality. When you sit there and you collect your thoughts for a minute, hopefully you guys all have that one friend that's a good listener and then says, okay, this really sucks, but now what are we going to do about it, right? To bring us out of that victim mentality. It's just thinking, right? That's why it's represented by swords, because swords is air. Swords are thoughts, right? We can change our thoughts. As you can see, she's not tightly bound, right? It's like she's got toilet paper around her. That's what I always say. So when she decides to shake loose, you can see there's feelings there, right? There's the water and there's solid ground. And it's kind of 50-50. So when she decides to shake loose and get out of her head, that's what you see. She's red. So you could say that root chakra, that's what grounds her. And then she can change her thoughts, right? So it's okay when this Eight of Swords comes in. The idea is not to stay in that mentality, to recognize it, right? And again, take your time with it, take your time with it. that was a lot of gut punches, like, you know, we got kicked in the crotch, like, well, since Roe versus Wade, and then like 3 times in a row yesterday. So take your time with it. And when you're ready, you know, that's when things start to shift. So because all of this kind of like Eight of Swords energy was coming in different ways for different people, right? I decided to take all the planets that are retrograde and map them out and go over it. So on May 1st, Pluto went retrograde. And when Pluto goes retrograde, and it's going to be retrograde till October 10th, it may produce a fear of personal disempowerments, right? And so what just happened with all these rulings, if you will, from the Supreme Court? We started feeling real disempowered real fast, correct? And when this comes up, right, when Pluto's going retrograde and these things come up, may produce a fear of personal disempowerments. 2 things. It's important to say, oh, yes, Pluto's retrograde. But it's also important, the reason this comes up is because Pluto is the transformer. It wants us to see where we feel disempowered, so then we can address it, and then we can feel empowered. Okay, it's not there just to keep us down or to say that we don't have any power. It's sitting there churning to show us where we need to work on things with ourselves. Okay, it may also lead to a hesitation to speak the truth one sees. So if you're feeling, or if you felt like you can't speak up, you need to ask yourself, why do I feel like I can't speak up? You know, that's another journaling prompt, right? Why do I feel like I can't speak up? And again, Pluto's doing this so then we can work this false narrative out in our head, and then we'll be able to speak up for ourselves. And then one of the third things Pluto retrograde gives, it says, can give humility in the exercise of great powers, which I also find very interesting because that ain't happening. So I don't want to say that ain't happening. I don't feel like it's happening with like this white supremacy bullshit line that's going through. So we'll see how that works out. And if you feel like, I'm gonna hold back on something, maybe it's time to step it up a notch, right? Why not just go for it? And when I say like exercise of great powers, maybe you're coming into your spiritual truths right now. Maybe you're seeing things differently right now, and you're hesitating about saying, hey, look, this is where I am right now in my life, and it's time for me to speak up. You know, it's time for me to show up fully. And if that's the case, put a check mark in there and just decide, I'm going to show up fully, right? Because again, the idea of these planets retrograde and bringing things to the light is so that we can change them, okay? Because these planets are here to work with us. And the fact that, they're not as an old, also, I always say an old white patriarchal idea. These planets are here to help us. So again, this Pluto retrograde, if you're feeling, or, feeling fearful, and feeling yourself disempowered, okay, start working on that. Start seeing where you actually are empowered, because on June 17th, Saturn went retrograde, okay? So this is what's really interesting. When Saturn goes retrograde, we start feeling a deep sense of self-sufficiency, okay? So once we start to like get out of our minds of like, why me? Is this my path in life? Did I pick the shitty karma card this time around? We'd be like, wait a minute, let's get out of this. We start to feel like maybe we've gone over all the things where we've, been through things, and we've pulled it out, or just maybe we just start thinking, yeah, I can do this. I can get this shit together, right? Because when Saturn goes retrograde, it also has enormous reserves of inner strength, emotional self-discipline, and emotional self-discipline, right? And so we hit that started to get, started turning backwards on June 17th. So it's really starting to hit that retrograde point. So it is time to start seeing where we can have self-discipline. It is time to see where we feel self-sufficient, right? It is time to say, like, wait, we can do this. Wherever I'm feeling disempowered, let me see how I can meet that challenge or meet that scenario, maybe see where it's not real, and then start to see where I can bring in some stability, because Saturn wants us to be stable. Now, the real lower aspect of Saturn retrograde is feeling alone. And so it's really important that if you're feeling alone or like a loner, to notice that, and then to reach out, because you're not alone, first and foremost. And second of all, there's people really do love to help people. People really do like to be there for one another. And sometimes we forget that. And so if you are kind of stuck in that space, it's important to reach out, or just remember that actually, no, I do have help. Actually, I can do this. And even if that help is when you go to the grocery store and you ask the person for something, they point, that person's helping you out. You've got to remember there's more love coming onto the planet now than there ever has been, which again, I know seems counterintuitive because what's happening. But if you can back out of all of this and see how we're in this huge shift to make things better moving forward, because we are in this age of Aquarius where we're going to start asking different questions. We're going to answer old problems in different ways. Then it's all shifting towards the right direction, if you will. Now, just yesterday, which is I find very interesting too, Neptune went retrograde. Okay, so it went retrograde on the 30th, and then it will be retrograde until December 6th. So this is interesting because when Neptune goes retrograde, it says the psychic sensitivity is distanced from outer reality. It is easily distorted by subjective factors, but relatively free of interference from the logical function. And so the way that I'm reading this, and you guys, I got all these from oh shoot, I can't remember the name of the book. I'll put it in the comments below. Um, I'll put in the comments below. But with Neptune going retrograde, the psychic sensitivity is distanced from outer reality. So how I'm reading this is saying that to me, it's basically saying it's important to use discernment. Okay, it is important to still see where you want to go, even though outer reality is showing you all this stuff. Reality is trying to show you that affirmative action, is dead. I mean, affirmative action is dead. People can discriminate against LGBTQ, women's rights out the door. You're never going to get out of your student loans, all that shit. Now, that is being shown to us. But when Neptune goes retrograde, to me, I'm reading it as, okay, but what are you feeling? Like, what do you sense? What do you know when you get out, if you can get out of that fear, right? Because there's a whole bunch of people, again, that are freaking normal people that want normal things, that, don't mind student loan forgiveness, right? Or some sort of program where it's not, where you can pay things back, or, whatever. Again, I'm not going to go over all the things. It is this idea that there's more people that are, I'm just going to say normal baseline, if you will. And so when you can start seeing that in your mind and sensing that and feeling that happiness and feeling calm with that to me is Neptune retrograde. I might ask Helen how she feels about Neptune retrograde on Sunday, and get her opinion on that as well, because I'm going to talk about one more retrograde, because there's a lot. So right now we have Pluto retrograde, Saturn retrograde, Neptune just turned retrograde, and Venus will turn retrograde on July 22nd. Okay, so she's already kind of in her shadow period. And so when I have Venus retrograde, I have the creative mind can be free and inventive. See, I have hard push for social justice, which is how I see Venus retrograde, because I was listening to Andre the astrologer talk about someone else who just studies Venus, and they said, like, when Venus goes retrograde, that's when we have a lot of social justice uprising. And then I wrote Nurturing New Truths. So there was some other stuff written in the book about Venus retrograde, and I just don't think it resonates anymore for where we are as a collective, so I kept that out. Again, I'll write the book's name down. That book is written by a white dude, and it's very dramatic, okay? But there are some certain points. It helped me learn astrology, and so I do reference it a lot, even though if there's times where I feel like it doesn't resonate anymore, because we are moving quickly into this new energy. So just know this. So these things are handed down, or whatever, talked about from the Supreme Court. And Venus is about to go retrograde. And when she goes retrograde, creative mind can be free and inventive, right? And what did we say at the beginning of the video? We are in this age of Aquarius, where we're answering old problems in new ways, right? In creative ways. That is part of Aquarius. You know, Venus is practical. Venus is Earth, right? And so she's not going to sit around, and she knows her self-worth, right? So she's not going to be told, you know, you can't go to college. She's not going to be told you can't, you know, you're going to be dragging student loans with you for the next 6,000 years. And you know, or any of those things. And I also find it very interesting because last night on the news, they were saying some of the people that have the most student loans are women of color. And so the fact that Venus is going retrograde and she's like, you know what, we're going to figure something else out, I think is awesome, because we are going to figure something else out. Again, as a society, we're smarter than this, you guys. You know, as a society, we are moving forward. If we're still being shown some hard truths that we need to figure out and move through, then we're going to do it. Okay. We're not going to kowtow to a handful of some rich people, you know. And I told this to my mom last night. I was like, I always see this, I don't know what they call it, a shadow government. I don't know what they call it. But anyway, like, you know, we can see exactly what their agenda is now, but it's so antiquated and so old. I said, I feel like they're all like Gollum, and they're so in love with this idea, right? And he was so in love with the ring, and then what did he do? He followed it right into the volcano. And I kind of just see like that happening with them as well. So I don't know, just put that in your back pocket. And I want to tell you guys this too. On July 18th, the lunar nodes will shift. Okay, the north node will shift into Aries, and the south node is going to shift into Libra. And I find that so interesting. And I'll talk on it more when we get closer to it. Because when a sign goes into the south node, it is that losing, it is leaving, it is like expunging all those lower vibrations. And Libra is the scales of justice, right? And it's about to move into that lunar south node. And so to me, right now, I see it as whatever is keeping us out of balance is not going to be around that much longer, right? So you guys embrace these as best as you can. Retrogrades, see how you can work with them. See how this is a time for review. Again, if you're feeling a little stressed out or why me? It's okay. But also know, I know there's so much going on. It's all setting us up for more empowerment, but also know on the 3rd is Capricorn full moon. It's going to be a super moon. And on that same day, we then have the Sirius gateway, Sirius, like Sirius, which is known as our spiritual sun. And that gateway is when we can intend for higher vibrations. We can intend for this new energy to come in. I'll speak a little bit more on that when we get to the third, because this is a lot. But look up the Sirius Gateway, you guys. Go ahead and take that time, look it up. It is, with the Egyptian god Isis. It is our spiritual, like I said, our spiritual sun. Sirius burns brighter than our actual sun. And then also know that it is, it meets up with like the dog star, or was known as the dog star, and that's why we have the dog, that's why we call it the dog days of summer. So right now, everything does seem to be at an extreme, right? We are in the middle of summer, extreme heat, extreme sunshine. All the plants are expressing themselves. A lot of things are expressing themselves. And so it is good to remember to go out and ground, go out and, see how things are, but always know things are changing. Please know we are in a different age. We're in this age of Aquarius. And though Pluto and its return are hitting, things are hitting those same spaces like from the Civil War, and in like the revolution, because we hit a few Pluto returns. But no, the difference is we're in a different age. We're in this age of Aquarius. Aquarius is Uranus. Aquarius is rebellion. Aquarius is the future. Aquarius is the mind. It is the cosmos, right? It is bringing in all this new energy of thought and creativity and how to express ourselves. So I hope this helps. It helped me, so I hope it helps you. I'll put that book, I think it's The Inner Sky. I'll put that book down there. Of course, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out. You can get me on my website, here on YouTube, or on Instagram. So I hope everyone has somewhat of a peaceful, if not, a rebellious, but like, right, the cosmic rebellion, right? Like the spiritual rebellion, like we're going to get through this, we're going to do this together, and it's going to be better than ever than before. All those old antiquated ideas are out the door. So have a safe weekend if you guys are traveling for the 4th of July. And I will see you soon with the video about the Capricorn full moon.